Today, I would like to talk to you about a community project called FLYCORE. If you enjoyed this video, like it and subscribe to the channel. Thanks a lot. You may have heard the term FLYCORE lately. It's been coming up, say, more and more recently in the Nerf internet community, as it were. And I'm happy to show you that this is FLYCORE, or at least this is an example of FLYCORE. They won't all look exactly like this. Now you might be saying, where's the rest of it? Well, that's exactly right. FLYCORE in and of itself is not an entire blaster. Rather, it's kind of a blaster framework. The designer basically said the most tedious part of him designing a flywheel blaster was the actual flywheel mechanism for the motors and the magazine and the pusher. Never having done a full blaster design myself, I have no reason to disbelieve that. And what Old Fusion Designs decided to do was kind of abstract the flywheel mechanism so that it could be then applied to any number of other exterior blaster design. Now the really cool thing here is FLYCORE itself comes in both straight magazine and angled magazine variants for the different types of worker Talon magazines. This one is for a straight magazine, not that it matters, but in addition to the magazine options, there is basically spacing for every type of flywheel and every type of motor. So you can use 130, 132, or 180 motors, and there's crush spacing options. At the time of this recording, there's options for Flywheel the World, for mid or mini flywheels, like the ones that go on the Worker Hurricane, and then full-size flywheels. So the biggest regular dart-firing flywheels are probably the ones from Band Blasters, the Banshee wheels. This supports that, and then those are the biggest, and then basically everything down to the smallest, which currently is Flywheel the World, are supported. The one major downside of it is that this is all one piece. Well, the body of this is all one piece. So if you decide I want to use different motors or different crush in my blaster, you need to print and probably rewire this whole thing because the wires are kind of integrated into the whole thing. In addition to motors, which are up front, you would of course apply flywheels to the motor spindles up here. And then there's also an N20 motor on this part. N20 is a relatively slower spinning motor. And then there's a little disc that goes on the N20, and there's the actual pusher right here. And then finally this part on top, which is just kind of a guide for the pusher, is a separate piece as well. Now I also know that additional FLYCOREs are in development. I believe that Old Fusion is working on one where the motors would be sideways and then the flywheels would be vertical instead of horizontal. Old Fusion will also be supporting additional flywheels that come out. So the Worker Nightingale pistol uses even thinner flywheels than Flywheel the World, and Old Fusion is working on crush spacing for that because they're a relatively new product. Now I'm just going to show off a few FLYCORE blasters. This is the first one that came out. This is the Quick. This uses the angled Talon, and this is the Meowser. This is the second FLYCORE blaster to come out, and this uses the straight version of the Talon magazine. With both of these, there are a number of different options for building them, such as a longer battery compartment. Well, actually, the longer battery compartment, apart from the crush spacing of flywheels, that may be the only option that's available here. But for the Meowser, there's a whole bunch of, there's different barrels you can get. There's an additional kit that makes it look like Han Solo's blaster. And then the best thing, in my opinion, is that Old Fusion made the FLYCORE free. So you can basically download this thing and then design your own flywheel blaster around it. The two that I just showed, the Quick and the Meowser, were designed by Old Fusion. However, there's some additional community designs that are already out, and then some additional ones that are in development. This massive tall boy is the Jacuzzi by Galaxy Creations, and I'll be carrying this in the store too. I already carry the Meowser and Quick in the store, so this also has a lot of options. This one uses a battery compartment at the top, but there's one where the battery compartment is on the front here underneath the barrel. There's all kinds of different options for things like this hand guard and getting additional Picatinny rails, all kinds of options. And then one other additional design is the Mark 23 by Meeker VI or Meeker 6. Basically all of these function identically. The trigger on a half pull will rev the flywheels, and then on a full pull will activate the pusher. And you might be able to hear, I don't know, Oh wait, my microphone's over here. There's two little clicks there, so click, click, click. That's pressing the trigger part way each time. Click, click. Very cool. Granted, with most flywheel blasters, you want to rev the flywheels up before you start pushing darts into them so you get maximum velocity, but in a panic you can just pull the trigger all the way and it'll fire. The reason I wanted to make this video is basically, I don't know if FLYCORE is very well known, but it should be in my opinion because it is so cool, and then you'll probably hear the term used more and more often as time goes on. In addition to these blasters that I already have in hand, the Mark 23 and the Jacuzzi, I know of at least one additional one in development. I believe the user is called Gears. I'm just going to put up a picture of that design. I don't think it's out yet, and unfortunately that one is going to be too big for my printer, which has a relatively small bed. And then I believe Old Fusion Designs is actually working on a different one, possibly with the vertical flywheel orientation. More is yet to come, and it's very exciting. Another one of the nice things is, of course, once you know how to wire these things, you can wire pretty much any of them. I hope that you have enjoyed this brief look at a very cool system for designing flywheel blasters. Thank you for watching. I will see you next time. FLYCORE